About time.
You're good.
Okay, so we continue to ruminate on the nature of time, or actually our perception of time. Time is a universal constant, it's there whether you like it or not. God knows that, and it's not there whether you like it or not. So it's our perception of time, which has changed our history. And to repeat what I've already said the last couple of weeks, I want to think about time as kind of liturgy, a secular liturgy. It could be a godly liturgy, and I think in our modern world it's become a secular liturgy. Liturgy being a ritual that's kind of there. Sometimes it's conscious, most of the time it's kind of unconscious. But it has a deep effect and powerful effect in shaping our consciousness and our perception of the world. And perhaps most importantly, shaping our spiritual lives and the way we understand who we are, who is God, and our relationship with God. And so these are interesting things in my mind, but I think I want to keep bringing it back to what does it say about God and how we imagine who God is. Let me go back a little bit and make this personal for me. I remember in high school, I was a good student, but by the time I was a junior or senior, I kind of figured out the system. I thought, I can do this, you know. I think the night before the final exam, I thought, I was pretty confident. I think I just read enough. I've read the books so many times. I've studied my notes. I've done some practice tests. I've done on my own. I thought, okay, I can do this. So I could confidently walk into most tests thinking I could do this. And then I went to college, and it was very different. And we were all very driven, very motivated, very smart, and it was impossible. Meaning, this is the amount of work one can do in 24 hours, 7 days a week, and this is how much work they gave us. You know, it was just, I mean, it's not even a little more; it'll exponentially more than you could possibly do. And so we were all freaking out and panicking, but we realized, well, there's a way to solve this problem. We're all very good at solving problems, and what you do, and there are a couple of different things we figured out how to do. Number one, time management. I felt like there was nothing in college that we couldn't study. We could probably master all of certain years threw at us. That wasn't a problem. The real problem was time. If we took like maybe 2 or 3 classes at a time, we could all be fine. But the thing was, they just never gave us enough time to study, and it was too hard. So our lives were about meticulous, phenomenal, precise time management. We broke everything down to that minute to get it done, and we would figure out, I will read a book while I do my laundry, you know, or I'll have my note cards while I'm going for a run on the treadmill. Actually, probably what was sacrificed though, we were all very self-conscious. Somebody even talked about it. We were going to sacrifice personal relationships. I remember this one conversation I had with a guy. I was like, I like this girl. Like, no, she's nice. She's pretty. I think she likes me, but I'm not going to date her. Why? It's like a 7th course. I got 6 classes. Dating like 7th class. There's just no time to date this girl. And not only romantic relationships, but I really think we just sacrificed personal relationships. We had friendships, but friendships were very. It's like a mortar between bricks. And we would have friends that were like the in-between glue that helped that made the other really important things in our lives. I could squeeze in a certain kind of super relationship. You might have room for 2 or 3 deep relationships. We were even talking about this. We were subconscious, like, yeah, friendships are just too time draining. I can't get the grades I need if I have real friendships. So I'll just have a few superficial ones and a couple deep ones, and even the deep ones will be very limited in time. The other thing that we mastered was just cutting corners. We realized you can't read everything, so you read as much as you need for the test and learn what you got to do to take the test again. Yeah, that's another issue. My suspicions were confirmed about 10 years ago by an article from Latin Monthly about this one guy wrote about a bunch of students at Harvard University. I don't know, Yale, but anyways, close enough. But they said, and the article was called Organization Kit, and most of them complained, students complained that, yeah, it's really sad, I just can't finish reading the books I need for the class, or sometimes I want to take a class that's very interesting, but I won't do it because it'll interfere with my course trajectory, my life trajectory. And the author said, well, he said basically, if I read the whole book, I don't think I could get an A, you know, because I've got to read just enough to, you know, get the A, then move on to the next book. If I ruminated too long and meditated on a beautiful poem, I mean, I'm screwed, I can't get it done. So the author said, well, you're at Harvard, just get a B and learn more. They're like, what? Oh, it was a horrible idea. Like, sacrifice an A and not about flunking out, just get an A- or a B+. They got kind of horrified. No. Anyway, I remember during middle college thinking, this is messed up. I want to live this way. This is terrible. But that didn't really, my not liking this didn't really come through. After college, I moved to Boston, and that was an interesting city to live in. I read this, while I was living in Boston, I was listening to an NPR story about, what was it? uptight stress. What cities are the most uptight, stressed out, anxious cities in the world? And they had a funny little way of trying to measure it. And it's not totally scientific, but I felt it's hysterically funny and really consistent. And this goes back to time. I said, talking about time management in college, but no, they actually measured all the bank clocks in the city, right? In cities all over America. And they measured how long, when you're talking about crosswalks, when it says don't walk, walk. They measured the pace of people walking from one block to another. They broke it down very scientifically, like how fast you walk and average it out. And then they had the exact amount of money. They go to a bank and ask the teller, I need change in this form for this amount of money. And they timed the teller to see how quickly they did it. And it wasn't just one or two. They did it all over the city with a lot of data points. They measured Boston, New York, San Francisco, LA, all these cities. And then they had a ranking of and based on the combination of these metrics, what was the most uptight city? And by the way, it all has to do with time. How fast you walk, how accurate is the clock, down to the atomic clock, wherever, and how fast you put out change. You think it would be New York, right? It wasn't. It was in Boston. Boston is the most uptight city, and not by like a margin. It was like a lot. The distance between Boston and New York was huge, and then the rest of the city sort of were more in increments. It was like a runaway winner. And I listened to this NPR story while living in Boston. I thought, man, that's about right. I'm an uptight. I was an uptight college student. I'm an uptight Bostonian.
That's why the drivers are so horrible in Boston, I guess.
Oh yeah,
They are. I mean,
The roads don't help. The roads don't help.
Yeah, right, yeah. The roads
don't even start on the roads.
Yeah.
Like, it's a terrible thing that Chicago burned down. But if there's any good, they rebuild it from scratch as all the grids. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Boston is like basically an ancient city based on like medieval cow pastures.
What is cow?
Cow pastures.
You walk from Boston, that's all it is.
I remember this before GPS. Before I moved to Boston to go see my sisters living outside of Boston. I had a brand new car. I thought, all right, remember those? Well, you guys, I like being around you guys. You guys know about those maps, the accordions, and like trying to figure out how to get there. And oh my gosh, I thought, well, I know the Citgo sign there. If I head towards that, and I ended up on the highway, and I was happy in New Hampshire. I thought,
but they have the tea.
Yeah,
the tea is so much better.
The tea is awesome.
And
run the time.
My daughter was a college student there, and when I went to visit her, I used to stay in a motel in Braintree outside of the city and get on the very last stop of the T in Braintree and go in. And when I got in, I remember I was waiting for a train, and one of the T personnel was standing there on the platform, and I said, I love the tea. This is so great. She said, so God, people around here hate it.
I like the
I said, come to Philadelphia, you'll feel differently.
I think once you figure things out, you become a native. But the worst part is like the roads have a name in this direction, and they have another name in this direction. And the same road changes names every few miles. I'm telling you, you just have to know. It's like a city that hates outsiders.
That works around here too.
It really does.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't drive through if I can avoid it. But and the older the city, the more messed it is.
Let's put it this way, the street out front is.
That's right, Route 30, Old Lancaster Avenue, and
Lincoln Highway.
It's older, so we know how this is, yeah. Anyway, back to time.
Very Bloomingdale.
So I was living in Boston for about 6 years, and then I went to grad school in Indiana. And first I wanted to go there. There were 3 professors who really wanted to work at the University of Notre Dame. But I thought, oh my gosh, the flyover state. I'm gonna have to live in a flyover state. I'm gonna be so lonely, depressed. Actually, it was some of the best years of my life. But I remember my plane landed in South Bend, Indiana, and I got my apartment. I was gonna rent for the summer for grad school, and I had to go to the local grocery store. I had about 3 or 4 days, maybe more, like a week to do nothing before school started. I gave myself, about a week to just sort of settle in, explore the area, get some work done, but nothing pressing. I had a lot of time to do things. And I'm in the grocery store at the local, their local version of Wegmans or Acme, and I was already uptight. I just got off the airplane, so that's very stressful. And I literally dumped my bags at the place I'm staying and renting, and I had to buy some groceries. And it was a relatively empty grocery store. And there was like 2 or 3 people ahead of me, and getting groceries. And the teller was actually talking. in a very friendly way to the people about my groceries, and my blood pressure is just going up. Those cartoons, where they get the little red stuff, or the video games, you see the anger going in. My anger is going up, 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 up. Because this woman has the audacity to make conversation with the person in front of me. I'm like, I was just uptight. And then the next person's going and she's having more conversation. And then she gets to me and she's smiling at me, and I didn't bark at her, but I kind of give her a half-hearted smile and give her, move along, go, And then, she talks to me about what I'm buying, like, oh, this is nice cereal, how's it taste? Or like, oh, this is interesting, never had this before, what do you think? How's your day? And I'm like, I'm thinking you're wasting my time. Come on, let's move along. Now, this would have never happened with stock market in Boston. They're very, very, very efficient. They're quick. And everyone has somewhere to go. And then, she packed my, I got my 2 bags of stuff, and I'm leaving the Star Market, and people keep asking me, like, hey, how you doing? Hey, how's it going? Like, why are you looking at me? Like, you don't know who I am. I was almost offended by the friendliness, and I noticed something. People walk slower in Indiana. It's kind of the Midwest, and maybe I just felt like rhythm was off. Like, I expected to walk this fast and do things this quickly, and they're just so slow. And I'm just fuming after just being here for less than 24 hours. Then it dawned on me, what are you so angry about? Like, I gotta go somewhere. Where? Where do you have to, this is my internal dialogue. Where do you have to go? Nowhere. I've got nothing to do for 7 days. What do you want to get done? Nothing. But I gotta get something done. I realize how much like a liturgy, it just sort of like college in Boston, 10 years, I've woven its fibers of my soul. They're always busy. And I remember being in college thinking, you ask someone in college, at least my college, how's it going? And there was always one answer. Well or good is never the answer. The answer is always, I'm busy. That was always the answer, I'm busy. And we were busy. But it occurred to me, so that was college and later on high power Boston. You ask me, how's it going? Oh, I'm stressed out, I'm busy. Oh, I'm so busy. And it occurred to me that was almost like a liturgical, Lord be with you, but also with you. How you doing? I'm busy. And I started messing with people in college in Boston just for fun. Every now and then, how you doing? I'm doing great. Oh, it's like you broke the script, like why? It's just doing well. I got all this free time around me. It's great. And I wasn't, by the way, I was busy, but I just want to see how people react. You felt like I said it actually felt heretical. Like in a church that says something awful about Mary or Jesus, like you're not allowed to not be busy. And it occurred to me, this is my theory. In certain parts of the world, urban worlds, urban centers, I'm busy means actually I'm important. I am so important that I've got so many important things to do, and many, many people who are very important are demanding my time. And I'm juggling so many important things to do. So I think that was we were all busy. But I think if you weren't busy, so here I am in Boston, now I would get busy later on for the next 10 years, but for about a week, I actually wasn't busy. But I felt like I needed to be busy and needed to be angry and uptight and frustrated with people and demanding people to move on, because then I've got important things to do and you were interfering with my time. And how dare you interfere with my time? And I started realizing how, I was self-aware, I'm subconscious about how this was like weaving itself into my soul. That I'm a very busy man, I'm very important, and how dare you rob me of my time. And what I learned in college and afterwards was the key to my life is time management. Manage the clock. The only way you'll ever get all your important stuff done is if you manage your time wisely. Because we all have the ability to do amazing things, but we just
5-minute manager.
And this is so then grad school started, and that was even worse. I'm like, it was just too much work. They gave us too much books to read per every class and just too many things to do. And so I learned quite explicitly from my peers, my mentors, those students who are 2 or 3 years beyond me, you don't read the book, No, you don't. We all find shortcuts, and you just figure out how to sleep less, eat quickly, and cut out all forms of recreation, or if you're on the treadmill, you will read a book. If you're going for a walk, you'll read some flashcards. You're always going somewhere. You're always working on something, and everything has to be very. It was pretty toxic. It really affected me. I started breaking. I actually got a thing where I got my teeth to watch and chime every hour, ding, every time and then I asked myself, okay, what did you get done with this past hour? Were you productive? All right, get to work. Ding. Oh shoot, I think I daydreamed too much the last hour. I think I just sort of loafed around a little bit. So I was really disciplined on making sure every hour counted. I even started managing my sleep. Like I thought, if I sleep this many hours, at this hours, I have to optimize my sleep to get more work done, you know. I just, I mean, it was, I mean, and it's not that I was that much mature, it was that I failed. And I think that's true for a lot of things like law school, medical school, it's just too much work. And so I think we have a whole culture of high achievers who are obsessed with time and efficiency and getting things done. I think there are places like Indiana, you know, where it's not that way, but it's certain, I mean, I imagine it's true of almost all of you in this room. You must be able to relate to like their drive to, you know, maximize and squeeze every bit of productivity out of every minute of the day in order to achieve, you know, be great. But then be great at what though? I bring this up partly, and these are not new thoughts for me. I've been thinking about this for my whole life. I realized this is really messed up, but I have no choice. This is really screwed up, but this is the world I live in. I don't, you know, there's an escape. A couple of years ago, stuff happened in my career. They were good, by the way, but it just, things sort of reached a phase of equipoise, where things just got a little bit easier maybe, or, well, whatever. I got promoted, I got tenured, all this stuff, you know. And I had a certain moment in which I got to this moment of a promotion. I took a deep breath in the summer and I thought, huh, do you feel better? I'm like, no, not really. But it occurred to me, I'm not like up against a gun anymore. I mean, I could keep working the way I do, but, or maybe I will, but the pressure's on. And I started wondering, like, no, actually, so what is the meaning of your time? Do you have to be always uptight all the time? You always have to tell your wife to hurry up and go somewhere? Or do you all have to be impatient with your children? Or you all need urgently, are you having conversations? I mean, I would literally in grad school have conversations where I can imagine the time, like we're talking to you. I'm thinking, how much time is this gonna take? How much longer are you gonna take my time? Because I have to go do something. I thought, and those habits carried me into my adult life now. And it occurred to me over the last couple of years when things happened in ways like, oh, maybe I don't have to be that way anymore. It's not that I want to be that way. It just felt like circumstances demanded that of me. I want to go back to imagine what it's like to be a pre-modern farmer. You know, we all have alarm clocks. Some things are repetitive, but when you're a farmer I'm going to be big generalizations here. You know, you're a yeoman farmer, meaning you grow mostly to grow stuff for yourself. You're not a commercial farmer. When you wake up in the morning, probably when the sun goes up or the rooster crows, and then when you go to work, you're literally going out your front door and boom, there's a small little farm. You probably have a couple servants with you, you put your kids to work and you work. And you know, when you take your lunch break, when the sun is about yay high, you know, again, no one has to, maybe, or the church bell will sort of give you some indication when you stop working, all right? So you take a break and then you go back to work, you know, when you're done with your lunch. Again, there's no, oh shoot, 20-minute lunch, let's go, you know, and you eat your lunch. And I'm not saying life is easy, but you have your body, it takes this much time to eat your bread and cheese and, you know, salted meat, and then you go back to work. And then you actually stop working for the most part when the sun goes down. And then you're done for the day. You might have some recreation or time, family time. I'm not making it too romantic, life is hard, but no, you imagine a world without clocks, you know, and it's not that they were lazy, but they were bound and limited by the lack of technology or by what the rhythms of nature. And you could say, in fact, you could work by candlelight at home, I suppose. But I heard this funny podcast about, actually, it was Freakonomics. This guy tried to make a candle from like basement, like bare material. He would go to butcher shops and he would buy tallow, you know, he finds some organic person that made hemp, you know, and he made a candle in his new apartment kitchen. And then he lit the candle and he tried to figure out how much money per lumen does it cost, or how much is that every lumen, you know, compared to like a light bulb. And what he found was, again, maybe you have to factor kinds of scales, just a fun little experiment. But he said it's really, really hard to make a candle. And he realized every bit of lumen that the candle emits per dollar is very expensive. It's not that they didn't have candles in the pre-modern era or lamps or oil lamps. It's just that it was really expensive. So maybe actually, is that I could light a candle, I could work into the night, but I don't think it's worth it. It's too much money. You can't afford to work late into the night. Okay, so fast forward to an industrialized America in the late 1800s.
Before you go on.
Sure, yeah.
I worked on a farm for 3 years.
Yeah.
And there are certain time pressures that occur in farm life too. For example, the herds have to be separated at a particular time so that mating can happen. If a fence goes down, you gotta get that fence repaired right away.
Yeah.
Or your livestock will get away. there are those kinds of things that are time pressures that make that day
Yeah.
a must do before the sun goes down.
Oh,
You know, it's not the same as office work, but and not every day is like that, but you have a whole long list of things that need to be done, and you know, that list, you won't get that list done in any time soon, but you just keep chipping away at it, and so you feel that time pressure if you're running the farm.
Oh, to be clear, not suggesting farm was easy or leisurely, but
I was just speaking in terms of the concept of time.
yeah, and so, no,
It's not, you get up and, you know, I think I'll go, you know, fix that fence today, or, you know, it's not a leisurely thing.
No, it wasn't
It's
just-
that time pressure of,
Yeah.
I gotta get this done, as this farm, you know, it's important to the running of the farm.
Oftentimes harvest season, you have to work a maniac.
Yeah.
And it's like, you probably can never finish harvesting everything, it's just too much. So yeah, not to suggest that, my in-laws, they run a dairy farm in Lancaster, and they're not industrials. But yeah, I mean, it's like they could never take vacations, because cows gotta get milked so many times a day, and if you don't milk them, you miss the milk, they'll develop
You
that.
gotta milk them at the right time.
Yeah, they'll, at the
To
time, but,
maximize production.
yeah, but,
Well,
and if you don't milk them, you skip a milk there, they block up or something, so.
Yeah.
Not to say it's easy or leisurely, again, harvest time's crazy, planting time's crazy, things have to happen, I mean, but, it's not the clock. I mean, it seems to me, I maybe I'd be too romantic about this, but, the pressure is dictated by nature, not a watch, or not a corporate deadline, and that strikes me as being more healthy somehow, you know, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's almost like God's time, or natural time, the God links with nature, natural time, which puts demands on the things that we do. Anyway, to fast forward to, well, thank you for the corrective, by the way. Again, I don't want to give the impression of leisurely or it's simple, but the time was not industrial, it was something else. So fast forward to the late 1800s, this is well after the Industrial Revolution. I think about American urban centers in particular. At this point in history, the majority of Americans are still farmers, but the pie chart's changing. More people are living in the city than are farms. So in the late 1800s, so more farmers and factory workers. So what's work like in a city with a factory in the late 1800s? You probably live in a row home or apartment, not a farmhouse. And the soundscape of your life in a farm used to be the mooing of cows and neighing of horses, the bleating of goats, or the threshing of wheat, or as we said before, the bells of the church. That was the sound of your life, nature and the liturgy of the church nearby, sacred prayer and music. But now that soundscape has been replaced by the roar of the steam engine and the noise of the power loom. And you used to be summoned to the church to pray or something to worship or the holidays by the bells of the church. And now there's this new formal invention called the steam whistle, the air whistle. You know, you ever seen those? I wish I had a YouTube video of them, but you pull the horn, you know, it's an air horn. And the reason why they had air horns was part to like summon you to work. And the air horn summoned you to your lunch break. And the air horn said that your 20 minutes lunch break's over, and the air horn said, okay, work's over, you go home now. The sound, now there's still probably a church in the area, but the sound of the church bell has been replaced with the sound of the air horn. The dominance of the church, that was the biggest building in town, has been eclipsed by the dominance of the gigantic square factory. The church was, and in many ways, cathedrals are some of the most inefficient buildings you possibly imagine. That giant ceiling, it's like, you know, you can't use it. It's beautiful, but it takes up space. Where factories are built according to principles of massive efficiency. How do you get the most amount of productivity out of the least amount of space and make this sort of thing very efficient? With clocks, time became regimented as it never could be before. Again, no clocks, no factories that we think of them. Again, the point about the farming is you worked possibly in a small scale. So the sun woke you up and you went to work, and the sun told you when you're done with the day. Now with factories, it's not, as we said, the sun is imprecise. It changes at sunrise, changes every day. But with factories, it was a precise time when the factory had to open. You couldn't get to work when you felt like it was time to get to work. Everyone had to start at the same time. All the workers, hundreds of workers, would be summoned into the factory at exactly the right time. The machines had to start at the right time. The machines would be shut down for your lunch break and be brought before the lunch break. It wasn't up to you anymore. In other words, the machine had to be served. And people, an army of people had to serve the machine. It was all regimented around the clock, around time, which gets me to the next point. I want to think about how we commonly talk about time. Think about, you've heard this phrase before. You use it, you've heard it all the time. It's commonplace. Today I wasted some of my time. Oh, I wasted time today, or I used my time wisely today, or sometimes you might say I squandered my time. Or have you ever heard of this? I'm saving time, or I'm gonna spend some time, or I lost my time, or man, my GPS is great today. The track is awesome. I gained some time. So waste, use, squander, save, spend, lost, gain. I mean, again, I'm sure nothing about anything I've said sounds even remotely interesting, right? And we've said it before. But I want to write that down. I value my time.
The time has value.
Time has, and you've heard the phrase, time is money, right? Again, that's another commonplace name. Here's what I want to argue, or I'm not going to argue, I got this from other sources. No one talked this way until 1870-ish. This phrase did not exist. These phrases are invented along the rise of industrialization and that kind of mechanized time for work. Again, I'm not saying farm work was easy or lazy or leisurely necessarily, though sometimes it might have been, but it was according to the rhythms of nature. And then industrialization makes work according to the rhythm of a mechanical, precise clock, down to the minute and down to the second. And when that happens, we think of time differently. Time is money. All those terms, I waste my time, use my time, they replace the word time with money, and it makes perfect sense, doesn't it? I wasted my money. I used my money wisely. I squandered my money. I'm saving money. I'm spending money. I lost money. I gained money, or I value money. Time literally became money. And it could never be this way until we invented the mechanical clock. And this sort of language of time is only beginning at this time period, at these ages. And I think back to my grad school years when I'm talking to someone and they just start talking too long, and I'm thinking to myself, you're wasting my time. My time is important. And I'm like thinking about not in terms of days, but minutes. You have 8 more minutes to talk before I'm fed up with you. Or the poor nice lady in the grocery store in Indiana who was, I mean, I really felt like she was taking her hand in my pocket, pulling my wallet and pulling out 20s and just shoving it and burning them. I'm like, you're burning my money. I was just infuriated. And again, the way we change our understanding of time really coincides with our use of clocks, industrialization. I'm thinking about even like getting paid by the hour. That's normal, right? You have minimum wage laws, pay how much money per hour. I mean, it's an obvious thing that no one got paid by the hour before there were hours. You know, you might get paid for the season, you might get paid for the product, but not for the hour. But psychologically, I mean, I think our use of this stuff is really, and in good ways, you know, but it's really affected the way we understand the world. And we treat time like gold coins. You know, you have in your pocket, you can count, allocate, hoard, save, or spend. It's up to you. If we think of time the way we think of money, I mean, I don't even think we clearly don't think about money the right way. That's a whole nother lecture, you know, talk or think to meditate on. You know, our money belongs to God. We tithe at 10% to let God know this is really yours, not ours. But it's really hard to think money's mine, my bank account, my 401k account, you know, my little code to my bank account that no one knows but me. We think of money as ours, we're really belongs to God. But in the same way, though, what we probably don't talk about is we think of time as ours. I have my time, and sometimes we give to God. I have my time, and sometimes I give to ministry. And I have my time, and sometimes that I give to, you know, the people around me that might be worthy of my charitable generosity, my largesse of my time and my money. It's mine to use, hold, to dispose of as I see fit. Again, just like physical memory, money is mine and mine alone. I own my time, and I check my time on my watch. Again, how many times a day do you check your watch? I do all the time. You use the word time all the time. You talk all the time. You know, I check my watch all the time because I want to know how am I spending my time. My time, my body, my watch. I have ownership and mastery over all these things. Again, I think of time as becoming something like a secular liturgy. a repeated ritual we do over and over again. And I think, I know I wish I could bring it all together in one big lecture, but I just want to contrast that of our ownership of time, our mastery of time, our management of time, with what I was arguing about the very, very first day when we met 3 weeks ago. That what if time was like the wars, but its own time was nature, and nature's God. Time is the sun, time is the moon, time is the seasons, and you have no control over that. And then time becomes encased in the stone massive cathedral that whose bells ring periodically, and the calendar time is like a gift to you, it's given to you by God, and that controls your life versus my mastery over my time on my watch and my phone, which has a little calendar in it. I think that I think we would think about things differently. There's this idea that I get from Jonathan Edwards, but Isaac, the Enlightenment created this idea that we get to the, I mentioned before, the mechanical model of the universe. The universe is a clockwork, it's a machine. And that gave the image of God, made this beautiful clock. Now he's taking a nap on the dark side of Pluto and just wound up the clock and just let it go. And it's gonna, and this was an Enlightenment idea of the universe that was endorsed by Isaac Newton. It was very, very popular. Jonathan Edwards felt that this was a threat, this is a problem, to create an autonomous world in which God is there but not really necessary. Just the guy that watches is a master clock he made. And Jonathan Edwards offers an alternative image of how the world works. He suggests that the universe is an emanation of the love and beauty and wisdom of God. But rather than a clock that you wind up and step away from, rather his images, and I'm using an anachronistic analogy for Jonathan Edwards' analogy, but you know the way old films used to work, you know, you have a little picture, like a flip book, you know, and there's a slightly different picture. He wants you to imagine that God is constantly making the world second by second by second. Like God just made, boom, this reality. 2 seconds later, boom, another reality. Boom, another reality. And who I am right now versus who I was 10 years ago, or 2 minutes ago, or 30 years ago, I think the continuity, is me. I'm the continuity that connects all the versions of me throughout time. But Jonathan Edwards says, no, it's actually God who creates a continuity. God's that which causes causality. So what if time were simply something that God simply gives us? Every moment you live is a gift of God. And he's not obligated to make the next second. I mean, in theory, God can say, yeah, I'm done with that. We'll stop now. Last second of the love exists on earth. But rather, what we think of time is a gift of God that he keeps emanating constantly, minute by minute by minute, rather than a self-contained autonomous thing that functions on its own. So maybe we should think about time. I mean, again, this is just a conceptual idea. Just maybe think of time not as our own, the time that belongs to God. Then what if time is just a gift from God that he gives us day by day by day, and we receive every second and say, thank you, God, for another second. It's not mine, it's yours. Okay.
I think it's a good idea. I was thinking when you were talking about the clocks and mill clocks in the mills,
Yeah.
did not operate on regular time. They operated on when the machines were working.
Yeah.
If the machines went down, the clock stopped. So you did your 8 hours,
Yeah.
whether it took you 10 or 12, which in a way was, the owners of the machine were God,
No, you're right.
with your metaphor.
Yeah, you're right.
Mike,
Thinking about how much of an adjustment will it be to be in heaven where we have all eternity? You know, I think of, some of my fantasies of what heaven will be like is I want to meet with, Martin Luther and John Calvin and my parents and that, but will I have enough time to meet everybody I want to meet? When you take the time out of the equation, yeah, you will, yeah.
But think about how long the line is to get to that.
Mike,
Ted's trying to make a point. Go ahead, Ted.
Mike, going back over the last sessions that we've had, did you ever put the cross-cultural label on this, on our awareness of time? we used to talk about the cultural dimensions that were defined in the 60s by a man by the name of Hofstede. And additional to the Hofstede dimensions was the question of polychronic time and monochronic time cultures. Did you ever put those labels on?
I never used it. I don't know those terms, but we did talk amongst ourselves about places and like less industrialized have a more
Yeah.
generous notion of time, like, yeah.
Right. Well, from a cross-cultural standpoint, we put labels on cultures according to whether you do one thing at a time or you're guided by the need to fulfill a number of roles at the same time. Western countries, industrialized countries, are very much monochronic, and non-industrial countries, or it doesn't even break down that way anymore because Asian, African, Muslim countries are generally polychronic. They don't go by the clock. Relationships are guided by that. If you want to accomplish something with in a Muslim country, you establish the relationship first, and time is not important. And in our cultures, time is very important. We set a time for a meeting, and the meeting is of such and such a duration. And that is what's important rather than the relationship itself.
Yeah. When Eastern University, someone from our church connected with Eastern, there were a number of students doing graduate programs from other countries and but had no contacts in this country. So they asked a bunch of us from the church to like pair up with one grad student so they had somebody that they could connect with. We connected with a family from Sierra Leone, and he was a biologist by training, but he had been a school principal and was over here doing a master's in economic development. This was before the Civil War broke out, and he was forced to stay here. He brought his family and had a young daughter. And as time went on, we got to know them. He said to me one day, he said, you know, back in Sierra Leone, we didn't have many things, but we had time to spend with each other. He said, you know, that we would share what little we had, like, you know, someone would buy a bag of rice and we'd split it up amongst everybody, but we had lots of time to sit and talk and get to know each other. Here, you have many things. What you don't have is time, you know, which he found it really hard to adjust to. Eventually he did adjust. He became very American, you know, bought a house, got a job, you know, worked really hard, you know, it transformed him, you know, from what he remembered to be the more pastoral life in Sierra Leone to the more modern, you know, workaday world.
So what does it say in our culture about when you have a segment of society that wants to wear these elaborate, huge chronographs on their wrists, you know, and they spend thousands of dollars for the watch they want to have on their wrist that none of us really need anymore because you can tell the exact time many, many different ways.
Yeah, watch a documentary on the world's most expensive watch, a Patek Philippe. It's like $30,000. And I thought, and they showed you how they make them. I thought, I want one. Yeah, it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, there was
That for men in particular, that's for man jewelry. Like $30,000 for a watch.
Except I talk to people on my watch, so.
Yeah.
I saw a documentary where for one of the Saudi emirs had a Bentley SUV custom made, and he spent something like $95,000 on the clock that they put on the dashboard.
Yeah, Steve, you were saying something? Must be muted. Okay.
When I was.
It's symbolically interesting, by the way, isn't it? That, I've been trying to argue time is our God, and apparently we have offerings to our God.
When I was a full-time pastor for the 21 years, many of those years I was in some kind of a clergy group, which had all kinds of really good sides to it. But one of the things I realized was, your comment earlier this morning about I'm busy means I'm important, that most often when clergy would get together, and these are mostly male, I don't know if that would make much difference if it was female, was how many members are in my church?
Yeah, that's right.
And how many hours I work in a week.
Yeah.
And I found myself just thinking, at least on the second one, I don't want to be judged by how many hours I work. And so when I even switched to teaching at Palmer Seminary, all these up and coming pastors, and some of them were already involved in pastoral work, I could hear the same thing. And it was basically saying, the more I work, the more spiritual I am.
Yes.
I don't want to, what was the Prohibition guy, better to burn out for God than rust out for God, or something like that. But I challenge my students that if I meet them somewhere down the road and they're pastors, I'm going to ask them two questions. When is your day off? And what did you do with it?
Yeah.
And if you hung around the church or you checked in with the church office, I'm getting your grades back from your Palmer and I'm knocking you down a grade or something, because that is the wrong answer.
I found it interesting, a discussion I had with one of my friends as he was about probably 9 months to a year into retirement. And I said, how's it going? He said, well, I've learned a lot about myself. He said, and he was somebody who had been an executive in a holding company that managed a number of different small businesses. And he said, my whole career, people complimented me on how busy I was able to stay and how much I was able to accomplish and manage. He said, now I'm retired, and what I've learned is I never learned how to manage my own time. And he said, work was a default. Oh no, I can't do that because I have work.
Yeah.
And he said, now I have to learn again how to manage my time and make appropriate use of it, rather than just dedicate everything to this other thing that isn't really big.
I find I use work possibly to avoid other things. And there are things I kind of want to avoid, but work seems to be a very culturally virtuous and appropriate excuse not to manage things in my life I'd rather not deal with.
And I found it from myself in retirement. It took me quite a while to adjust to it because I had lived my career basically in 45-minute increments.
Yeah, me too.
And it was like, how much did I get done in these different increments? And then have a whole morning and go, well, I read 40 pages of a book.
I bet you're rewarded for that too. Right?
Pardon me?
You were rewarded for being
Yes.
very productive,
Yes.
and professionally, financially,
Yeah.
accolades.
Yeah.
They were encouraged to do that.
Yeah, you are.
And like me with counseling 50-minute intervals, you probably wouldn't have to look at a clock, but you could kind of tell.
Yeah.
It's about 45 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, I feel the hours in my body. I know it. I do a trick. I bet it starts. Yeah, that's right. Down to like 2 minutes.
But now I'm enjoying the fact that I could be out in my backyard and I can go, it feels like it's about 3:30.
Yeah.
Because of the light. And,
Yeah.
You feel the temperature changing and stuff like that.
I was even thinking, when you talk about not having clocks and concept of clocks back in the, for so much time, about food preparation. When you're scrambling eggs, you're probably not looking at a clock and saying, well, it's gonna take me 6 minutes. You just okay, I think they're done from look and, you know, but now all the recipes are put it in the oven for, at 350 degrees for, you know, 35 minutes or something. It's time oriented rather than looking at it and poking it or something like that.
Yeah, it's very time oriented, but I'll mention one, you ask, at least in my experience, pretty much any chef, like how long should I put this in the oven? And the answer is invariably until it's done. No longer, and and at least that, you know, there is a right amount, but it's always, it depends on the oven, it depends on your elevation.
And the goal is actually not time, but well, does it taste good?
Right, yeah.
So who cares how long?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's temperature.
Yeah, that too, but.
But and another sort of common sentiment these days is that time is maybe almost more valuable than money. It's like the only unrenewable source that we have. Money, you can get more, but at least that's how people think of it.
You're right.
But
And now they talk about quality time.
Yeah.
You spend quality time.
Would either Eric or Mike have any idea of how kind of the history of time in music? You know, there's different, you know, 4/4 time or 2/2 time or whatever time, and then there's, you know, allegro, you know, kind of slow and easy, or there's a real fast, you know, just that whole use of time in music, I guess.
well, I do know that I was reading the other day and reminded that the metronome, a lot of composers were quite happy about that.
Happy or unhappy?
I'm very happy because it kind of standardized your ability to set tempos. Like a allegro could be anything really, kind of, to anyone, because there's just a word that I think it means maybe fast or something, but so what's fast? You know, it could be quarter note equals 120, it could be 180, depending on the facility, but so not, then composers could say quarter note equals this.
And it creates more of a meaning to the music,
Yeah,
you know, slow, fast, I mean.
oh, yeah, I think people could talk for a long time about that, but I would just note that the metronome.
There you go, a whole rabbit hole to go down with time.
No, I get it. I listen to the podcast, but I heard just one guy suggesting that Beethoven's Fifth, he played way too fast.
Thank you.
We don't know how fast this stuff was played when Beethoven does or Bach composed. We just assume. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, would you close this in prayer?
Sure. Lord, we commonly think of you as a master of physical space and the things in this world, but we don't think of you as a master of time. And you own our time just as much as you own our money. So maybe we offer our time to you because it really is yours. And may we not be obsessed with being busy and important, but may we be obsessed with, preoccupied by how we use the time that you generously give us. That is not ours, but yours on loan. And be with us throughout the rest of the day and this week. Thank you for this year. In Christ, I pray, amen.
Amen.